In a world torn apart by endless wars and bloodshed, one man rose from the dust of history. He was not born in a palace, but his courage made kings fear him. He was not only a warrior, but a man of mercy who forgave even his enemies. His name echoed across deserts and castles, from Cairo to Jerusalem. Salahuddin Ayyubi, the Lion of Faith. This is the story of how he changed the destiny of nations and became a legend remembered by both East and West. Long ago, in the 12th century, the world was divided by wars of faith, land, and power. The Middle East had become the center of struggle between the Crusaders from Europe and the Muslims who lived there. Out of this storm of chaos rose a man whose name would echo through history. Salahuddin Ayyubi, also known as Saladin in the West. He became a symbol of courage, justice, and mercy. His story is not only for Muslims, but for all humanity, because it shows how a leader can be strong in war, yet gentle in heart. Childhood and early life. Salahuddin was born in the year 1137 in Tikrit, a small town in modern-day Iraq. His family belonged to Kurdish roots, and his father, Najm al-Din Ayyub, was a respected officer. On the very night of his birth, his family was forced to leave Tikrit because of political tensions. This moment marked the beginning of a journey full of trials. Though his birth seemed unlucky, his future was destined to change the course of history. As a child, Salahuddin was not known as a warrior. He loved learning, especially about religion. He studied the Quran, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the teachings of great scholars. He also learned about mathematics, astronomy, and literature. Unlike many boys of his age, he was quiet, thoughtful, and humble. Yet inside him burned a deep love for Islam and a desire to serve his people. Training for leadership. Salahuddin grew up under the guidance of his uncle, Shirkuh, a powerful general who served under the famous Muslim leader, Nur ad-Din Zangi. Through his uncle, Salahuddin entered the world of military training. He learned how to ride horses, use swords, and command troops. At first, he did not appear to be the strongest fighter, but what made him different was his mind. He had a sharp memory, a wise heart, and the ability to unite people. Nur ad-Din Zangi, who ruled in Syria, believed strongly in protecting Muslim lands from Crusader attacks. He also saw potential in Salahuddin. Under Nur ad-Din, Salahuddin learned not only military skills, but also the importance of justice, discipline, and unity. He realized that to defend the Muslim world, Muslims first had to overcome their divisions. At that time, different rulers in Egypt, Syria, and Iraq were often fighting each other instead of uniting against the Crusaders. Salahuddin carried this lesson in his heart. Unity would be the key to victory. Rise in Egypt. Salahuddin's first great test came in Egypt. The Fatimid Caliphate in Cairo was weak and divided. The Crusaders, especially from Jerusalem, wanted to control Egypt because of its wealth and strategic location. Nur ad-Din sent his general Shirkuh to defend Egypt, and Salahuddin went with him as an assistant. In Egypt, Salahuddin showed not only bravery in battles, but also wisdom in dealing with people. When his uncle Shirkuh passed away, Salahuddin unexpectedly became the commander of the Muslim army in Egypt. Many thought he was too young and inexperienced, but he soon proved them wrong. With patience and intelligence, he stabilized Egypt, ended corruption, and strengthened the army. Eventually, he was appointed as the vizier of Egypt, making him one of the most powerful leaders in the Muslim world. Building power and unity. Once in power, Salahuddin faced many challenges. The Crusaders attacked from outside, while rivals plotted against him from within. But Salahuddin worked tirelessly. He reorganized the Egyptian government, supported scholars and teachers, and made sure justice was served. He spent more time in prayer and planning than in luxury. Unlike many rulers, he lived simply. He did not waste money on palaces or gold. Instead, he invested in strengthening his people. Salahuddin also worked to end the rivalry between Egypt and Syria. After the death of Nur ad-Din, there was a risk of chaos. But Salahuddin carefully united Egypt, Syria, and other regions under his leadership. This was not easy. Some leaders fought against him, but Salahuddin was both firm and merciful. Step by step, he built a powerful and united Muslim empire stretching from Egypt to Syria, ready to stand against the Crusaders. The Crusaders and the Holy City. At that time, Jerusalem was under Crusader control. For nearly 90 years, Muslims had been unable to pray freely in the Holy City. Churches were built on sacred sites, and many Muslims and Jews were treated harshly. For Salahuddin, Jerusalem was not just a piece of land, it was the heart of faith. He believed it was his duty to free it, but he was patient. He knew that before marching to Jerusalem, he had to build strength and unity. The Crusaders feared Salahuddin's growing power. Leaders like King Guy of Jerusalem and Reynaud of Châtillon often raided Muslim villages, killing innocents and breaking peace treaties. Reynaud was especially cruel. He once attacked a caravan of pilgrims traveling to Mecca. This act deeply angered Salahuddin, who vowed that justice would come. The Battle of Hattin, 1187. The turning point came in 1187. The Crusaders, led by King Guy and Reynaud, gathered a massive army to face Salahuddin. Confident in their numbers, they marched into the hot lands near the village of Hattin, in present-day Israel. Salahuddin used his wisdom. He cut off their access to water, surrounding them in the burning heat of July. Thirst and exhaustion weakened the Crusaders. When the battle began, Salahuddin's soldiers fought with passion and faith. The Crusaders were crushed. King Guy was captured, but Salahuddin spared his life, showing mercy even to his enemies. Reynaud, however, who had broken many oaths and harmed innocent pilgrims, was executed by Salahuddin himself. This act sent a clear message. Salahuddin was merciful, but justice would not be ignored. The road to Jerusalem. After Hattin, Crusader power collapsed. One city after another surrendered to Salahuddin's forces. Finally, the gates of Jerusalem stood before him. The world held its breath. The Crusaders had taken Jerusalem in 1099 with a massacre, killing thousands of Muslims and Jews. People feared that Salahuddin would do the same in revenge. But here, Salahuddin's true greatness shone. When Jerusalem surrendered in October 1187, Salahuddin entered not as a destroyer, but as a liberator. He ordered his soldiers to protect the citizens. No blood was shed. Christians who wanted to leave were allowed to do so safely, and those who wished to stay were protected. Churches were respected, and holy sites were preserved. Salahuddin even allowed Jewish families, who had been banished by the Crusaders, to return and live peacefully in the city. His mercy amazed even his enemies. Across Europe, people spoke of the Muslim leader who showed more honor than many Christian kings. Salahuddin's character. What made Salahuddin so admired was not only his victories but his character. He was deeply religious, often praying at night and fasting during the day. He gave charity generously and cared for the poor. Despite ruling over vast lands, he owned very little personally. At his death, it was said that he left behind no gold or treasures, only his sword, his horse, and a reputation for justice. He believed power was a trust from God, not a tool for personal wealth. Salahuddin also respected knowledge. He supported schools, scholars, and hospitals. He encouraged learning not just of religion, but also of science and medicine. He knew that a strong society was built not only by soldiers, but also by educated minds. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Your support inspires us to create even better videos. After the liberation of Jerusalem. When Salahuddin liberated Jerusalem in 1187, the news shook the Christian world. In Europe, people could hardly believe that the city, which had been under Crusader rule for almost 90 years, was once again in Muslim hands. Churches rang their bells, priests called for new crusades, and kings began preparing for war. This marked the beginning of the Third Crusade, one of the most famous chapters in history. For Salahuddin, however, the victory was not the end. It was the beginning of a larger responsibility. He now had to defend Jerusalem against the most powerful armies Europe could send. He knew the storm was coming, but he trusted in God, his soldiers, and his people. The call of the Third Crusade. In Europe, the fall of Jerusalem was seen as a disaster. Pope Gregory VIII declared a new crusade, urging kings and nobles to march east. Among those who responded were three great rulers: Richard the Lionheart of England, Philip II of France, and Emperor Frederick Barbarossa of Germany. The most famous of these was Richard, known for his courage and military skill. Stories of his bravery made him a legend in Europe. Soon, the stage was set for one of the greatest encounters in medieval history: Salahuddin and Richard, two lions of different faiths, face to face. The clash with Richard the Lionheart. Richard's army arrived by sea, capturing the city of Acre after a long siege. Salahuddin fought fiercely to stop them, but faced difficulties. The Crusaders had strong ships, heavy weapons, and disciplined knights. Yet Salahuddin never gave up. He harassed their supply lines, ambushed their forces, and kept his soldiers motivated with faith. The two leaders never met in person, but they communicated through envoys and messages. What amazed both Christians and Muslims was the respect they had for each other. Though they were enemies in battle, they admired each other's bravery and honor. Richard once fell ill, and Salahuddin sent him fresh fruit, ice, and medicine as a gesture of kindness. On another occasion, Richard's horse was killed in battle, and Salahuddin sent him 2 new horses so he could continue fighting with dignity. These moments showed that even in war, humanity and chivalry could shine. The Battle of Arsuf. One of the most famous clashes was the Battle of Arsuf in 1191. Richard's forces were marching along the coast, while Salahuddin's army attacked from the hills. Salahuddin hoped to wear down the Crusaders with continuous raids. For hours, the Crusaders held their formation, resisting arrows and cavalry charges. Finally, Richard ordered a counterattack. The heavy knights charged with full force, breaking through Salahuddin's lines. The battle was fierce, and though Salahuddin's troops retreated, they quickly regrouped. Richard won the day, but Salahuddin's army was not destroyed. The war continued. Diplomacy and truce. Years of fighting left both sides exhausted. Richard could not conquer Jerusalem, and Salahuddin could not drive the Crusaders completely into the sea. The war reached a stalemate. Finally, in 1192, the two leaders agreed to a truce. According to the agreement, Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control. Christian pilgrims would be allowed to visit the holy sites safely. The Crusaders would keep a few coastal cities, like Acre. This treaty was remarkable. Instead of endless bloodshed, it established peace and allowed both Muslims and Christians to worship freely. Richard returned to Europe, and Salahuddin remained in control of Jerusalem. Their rivalry became legend, but their respect for each other set an example of honor that lasted for centuries. The humility of a king. Despite ruling a vast empire stretching from Egypt to Syria, Salahuddin lived simply. He wore plain clothes, slept on a humble bed, and ate modest meals. He gave away wealth to the poor and spent much of his treasury on schools, mosques, and hospitals. Unlike many rulers who grew arrogant, Salahuddin remained humble. He believed his victories were not from his own strength, but from God's blessing. One story tells that after his death, people checked his personal wealth. They found almost nothing. No piles of gold, no treasures, no luxury. He had spent everything in the service of his people. The man who had defeated kings and liberated Jerusalem left the world with only his sword, his shield, and his faith. The final days. In 1193, just a year after signing the treaty with Richard, Salahuddin fell ill in Damascus. He was only 55 years old. The news spread quickly, and people gathered to pray for him. Even his enemies in Europe mourned, for they had respected his honor and mercy. On his deathbed, Salahuddin continued to give charity. He ordered that whatever money remained with him should be given to the poor. Surrounded by scholars, family, and soldiers, he passed away peacefully, leaving behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Legacy of Salahuddin. Ayyubi Salahuddin's story is not just about battles and conquests, it is about values, faith, justice, humility, and mercy. He showed that a true leader is not the one who conquers lands, but the one who conquers hearts. In a time when cruelty was common, he showed compassion. In a world divided by religion, he showed respect to people of other faiths. His name lives on not only in Muslim history, but also in Western memory. Even centuries later, writers, poets, and historians speak of him as a model of chivalry. In the West, he is remembered as Saladin, the noble enemy, and in the Muslim world, he is honored as Salahuddin Ayyubi, the defender of Islam. His story teaches us that real greatness comes from character, not just power. The sword can win battles, but only justice and kindness can win lasting respect. Conclusion. From his humble birth in Tikrit to his rise as the liberator of Jerusalem, Salahuddin Ayyubi's life was a journey of faith and courage. He united divided lands, defeated mighty Crusaders, and ruled with mercy. When he died, the world lost a warrior, a statesman, and a servant of God. But his spirit continues to inspire generations. For Muslims, he is a hero of Islam. For the world, he is a symbol of true leadership. And for history, he remains the shining example of how one man, with faith and determination, can change the destiny of nations. Thank you for watching.